Have you ever
wondered what happens to your mind when you close your eyes? When the body sinks into sleep, and is it truly resting? Or is it the beginning of another journey, silent and deeper? In the still darkness of night, the final thoughts before you fall asleep do not disappear. They settle down, drifting through the layers of consciousness and become the source code of tomorrow. People often think sleep is a kind of letting go. But what if sleep is not an ending, but a reprogramming? What if every night you are rewriting yourself? The lines of your mind, the memories, emotions, and beliefs you carry into sleep are copied and etched deeper into your subconscious. Imagine each time you close your eyes, another world opens where what you think becomes seeds. And by morning, you live in the garden you've sown yourself. Welcome to Lucid Dream, Sleep and Science Stories, where we tell the stories of the mind, where science, philosophy, and sleep intersect to help you calm down, understand, and reprogram yourself night after night. Tonight, we'll go on a special journey called The Night Shapes the Mind, where you'll realize that sleep not only nourishes the body, but also trains the soul. Now, let your breath slow down, the light in your room soften, and your mind open like a still lake. Let us begin. The night doesn't begin with darkness, but with the moment the mind quietly switches off the noise of the world. That instant when you lay yourself down, body weary but mind quietly moving, that is the doorway. Not a doorway into dreams, but a passage inward. We often think of sleep as disconnection, but in truth, it is the phase when the entire operating system of the mind is being reprogrammed. Everything you think, feel, or believe during the day is copied and stored in the deepest layer of your subconscious. When you sleep, the conscious mind rests, but the subconscious works. And it works very honestly. The philosopher Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." That's not only true when you're awake, but also when you're asleep. Because in sleep, the thoughts you repeat become the patterns your brain uses to define who you are. If, throughout the day, you blame yourself, worry, or feel afraid, the subconscious records that as your default mode. And in the morning, you wake up in the same emotional frequency, not because life has gotten worse, but because you reloaded the same program. Imagine the mind as a garden. Every thought is a seed, and sleep is the fertile soil where those seeds sprout. You cannot plant seeds of anxiety and expect to harvest peace. You cannot sow doubt and hope to reap faith. Sleep doesn't change you. It amplifies what you carry into the night. Those who know how to train their minds understand that nighttime is the hour of rebirth. Before they sleep, they choose one thought, just one, to install into their minds like a command line. Sometimes it's as simple as, "I am learning to let go," or "Everything I need is already within me." These phrases are not spells. They are commands for the subconscious. Repeated before sleep, they slip into the deepest regions of the mind, where logic no longer rules. Only quiet belief operates. Science calls this process neural consolidation, the strengthening of neural networks. It means your brain is reorganizing memories, connections, and beliefs while you sleep. The ancient Greeks called it the purification of the soul. Two languages, two eras, yet both describing the same phenomenon. Sleep doesn't erase, it programs. The psychologist Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And it is during sleep that the unconscious works most powerfully. When you're no longer in control, it begins to take control. That's why the wise do not only choose their thoughts while awake, but also the last thought before they close their eyes. The night is not just darkness. It is a silent training ground, Everyone carries a flame into their sleep, but the difference is some let it burn them, others use it to light their way. If your mind is a lamp, then what you think before sleep is the oil that fuels it. When morning comes, the outer light only brightens the room, but the light you plant in the night illuminates your life itself. You can try this tonight. Before you sleep, don't rush to escape your thoughts. Sit with them like a quiet companion. Observe them moving without judgment, then choose one idea you wish to carry into your dream. A phrase, an image, a feeling, as long as it's real. Then release it into your breath. At that moment, you are no longer the one being programmed by the world. You become the one who programs your own mind. The Stoics. Philosophers believed that to control oneself in one's weakest moment is the highest form of strength, and there is no moment more fragile than the one right before you fall asleep. That is when consciousness melts away, the barriers of logic lower, and the soul becomes soft as water. If you know what to say to yourself in that very moment, everything else in tomorrow will change. Sleep, when you look closely, is a wordless ritual where you transfer control from the conscious mind to the subconscious. If you pass it on with fear, the subconscious will multiply fear. If you pass it on with gratitude, it will amplify peace. As Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." It is not that we lack time to live peacefully. We simply lack nights that know how to live in stillness. The night never repeats. Each sleep is a unique opportunity to retrain yourself, not through willpower, but through awareness and choice. And if you begin to understand this, you'll realize that every new day doesn't begin at sunrise, but with the very last thought before you sink into the night. So before we go any deeper, let this question echo in your mind. If tonight were your chance to rewrite yourself, what would you write into your mind? The night never truly sleeps. Only your body lies still, while the mind continues to work in an invisible world. If in the daytime the conscious is the lighthouse that guides you, then at night the subconscious is the deep ocean beneath, where every memory, emotion, belief, and fear hides like ancient creatures. When you close your eyes, consciousness fades, but the subconscious begins to receive, organize, and repeat. It doesn't know right or wrong. It doesn't distinguish between real and imagined. It only obeys what is repeated the most. The psychologist Carl Jung once said, "The subconscious mind is always active. It never sleeps." That's why you can wake up in the middle of the night and still feel your heart racing from what seems like a meaningless dream. It isn't meaningless, and it's data being processed by the subconscious, emotional files you didn't have time to clean up during the day. The ancient Greeks called the mind psyche, the soul. They believed that psyche never rests, for the human soul does not know rest. It only changes state. By day, it operates through thoughts, actions, and words. By night, it operates through images, memories, and emotions. And the strange thing is this, your brain doesn't actually know that dreams aren't real. When you dream of running, your heart truly beats faster. When you dream of fear, your cortisol levels truly rise. The brain reacts as if it's all really happening. That's why whatever you carry into your sleep becomes the script of the night. And every morning, you wake up to perform that same script in reality. Try to imagine this. Each night is a massive recording session. Every thought, no matter how small, is saved. You cannot choose to erase memory, but you can choose the song you want to play again in the morning. If you repeatedly think thoughts of patience, your brain will learn to shift from reaction to observation. If you repeatedly think thoughts of gratitude, your brain will begin to look for evidence of abundance. The truth is, the subconscious doesn't care whether you say, "I can" or "I can't." It only hears the keyword and begins reinforcing it as a command. That's why people who constantly say, "I'm tired," truly feel tired all the time. And those who say, "I'm learning to be at peace," end up finding real peace. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." The soul takes on the color of the thoughts it nourishes, and sleep is the moment when that color seeps deep into every fiber of awareness. If your day is filled with noise, let the night be where your mind is cleansed. If the world pulls you away during the day, let the night be when your inner world hears its own voice again. Do not see sleep as an escape. See it as the place where you reconstruct your identity. No one can do that for you. There is no pillow softer than a soul that has been cleared. Some people ask, if the subconscious never sleeps, can I control it? The answer is not entirely. You cannot command the ocean, but you can choose the current you drift along. You cannot stop the waves from coming, but you can choose how to receive them. That is the art of the Stoic, not to fight the mind, but to train it through conscious repetition. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And self-mastery does not begin in the daylight, but in the quiet hours of the night. The subconscious does not distinguish between present and past. When you recall a sad memory, it reactivates every emotion as if it were happening again. When you imagine a beautiful future, it also sends signals to your body to feel that as real. That is why imagination is the most powerful tool of the human mind. So before you drift into sleep, imagine yourself living as the person you wish to become. You don't need unshakable belief, you only need to repeat that image every night. Repeat. Not to deceive yourself, but to redirect what your subconscious is recording. Repetition, intensity. Repeating the right thing, gently, consistently, is stronger than any burst of effort during the day. Just like when we practice music. During the day, we rehearse the same short passage over and over. At night, when we sleep, the brain connects the notes by itself, completing the melody on its own. The next morning, we play better without knowing why. That is the subconscious, the machine of silent perfection. That is also why people who live under chronic stress often dream of being chased, getting lost, or falling. It isn't coincidence, it is the body replaying emotions that haven't yet been released. Sleep mirrors the mind, and the mind mirrors life. The world within you doesn't turn off with the lights. When the city falls silent, your brain is still working. Not for anyone else, but for you. So tell yourself what you wish to hear. Think the thoughts you wish to become. That is not deception, it is the redirection of the subconscious. Every change begins here. From small sentences, from seemingly harmless thoughts, from the moments you think are unconscious. When you understand that the subconscious never sleeps, you will no longer see the night as an ending. You will see it as a laboratory for the soul, where you can experiment with different versions of yourself so that by morning you can choose the best one to bring into reality. That is the art of silent living the Stoics left behind. And, like every journey towards self-mastery, it doesn't begin with strength, but with awareness. So, let this idea settle within you. Each night you hand your subconscious a script, and by morning you live that role. The night is not only for rest, it is where the awakened train their self-control. When the world sinks into silence, that is when the Stoic begins their work, training the mind. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That saying is not just advice, but a compass for every evening, because it is in those final hours of the day that we have the chance to look back at our own mind, when all the social masks have fallen away, and only we are left to face ourselves. That is why the Stoics always had a nightly ritual. Not prayer, not repentance, but self-training in silence. Every journey of change begins with a single, small sentence. No need for complex philosophy, just choose one thought, one command line, and repeat it with gentle belief. Let your mind understand that you are no longer the person of yesterday. You are relearning how to see, how to think, how to feel. Speak to yourself as if you were speaking to a child. I can improve. I am learning to let go. Everything I need is already within me. No need to force belief. No need to push yourself to feel it. Just drop these sentences into the space between your breaths. They will sink down like seeds falling into the moist soil of the subconscious. The Stoics believed in the power of repetition, not in impulsive emotion, because true belief is not created in moments of brilliance, but built in silent nights when you still choose to believe. Even when nothing seems to happen, a tired mind is not caused by a busy schedule, but by too many unprocessed emotions. We carry the entire day into our sleep. Unfinished conversations, unreleased thoughts, unspoken hurts. The philosopher Seneca once reminded, "He suffers more than necessary, who suffers before it is necessary." We make ourselves suffer more because we keep reliving pain in our minds. The Stoics had a simple habit. They cleaned their minds before sleep. Like washing your face or brushing your teeth, they saw mental cleansing as a form of spiritual hygiene. Before closing your eyes, ask yourself, what am I still carrying from today that I no longer need? Could be a word that annoyed you, a small mistake, a vague fear. Write it down in your mind and imagine placing it beside your bed.
Not throwing it away, just setting it down.
Tomorrow, if it's still necessary, you can pick it up again. If not, it will stay behind with the night. Letting go is not forgetting. It is choosing not to carry anymore. Like setting down a heavy backpack and realizing you can finally breathe deeper. Many people confuse reflection with self-punishment. They chew on memories, analyze every word, and ask themselves, why was I so stupid? But the philosopher Epictetus once emphasized, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Events don't hurt us. Our reactions make the pain last. So before you sleep, observe your emotions. Don't analyze, don't resist. Just look and name them. Anger, regret, hurt, sadness. When you name them, you separate yourself from them. Then quietly say in your mind, I see you.
I release you, I see you. And I let you go. There's no need to force them away.
Emotions are energy. When you stop fighting them, they dissolve on their own. That is the true detox of the mind, the purification of the soul. The Stoics do not avoid mistakes, but neither do they punish themselves for them. They reflect, they do not condemn. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." If morning is the privilege of life, then evening is the privilege of awareness. Before you sleep, look back on your day, but not to judge, but to learn.
Instead of asking, why was I so bad? Ask, what did this teach me today?
That small difference in the question creates a great difference in the inner life. When you can look back without hating yourself, you are already healing. Because no change happens in guilt. Only in love and understanding. Every night is a classroom. You need no lesson plan, no teacher, only honesty with yourself. See the night as a kind friend, one who always listens and never judges. So, when you lay your head on the pillow, don't pray for tomorrow to be easier. Pray for your mind to be clearer. When the mind is clear, everything becomes easier. Seneca once reminded, "As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters." Life is not measured by its length, but by the quality of each moment lived in awareness. And every such moment begins in the night. So, from tonight onward, let the Stoic ritual become your own. No need for wind chimes or scented candles. All you need is honesty and a little courage to look within. Evening is no longer an ending, but a training ground for the soul, where you strengthen your will, purify your emotions,
and rewrite yourself with every breath. And as your mind begins to grow still,
you will hear a very small sound, the sound of your own awakening. When you've passed through the waves of emotion, cleared your mind, and seen yourself more clearly, the night enters its deepest phase. Philosophical silence.
no noise, no scattered thoughts.
Only a white space remains where you face what humans most often avoid: impermanence. There are things that are never said, apologies that never arrived,
Unfinished endings we keep carrying.
hoping that one day someone will return and bring us closure. But the Stoics understood. Closure is not a gift, it is a choice. The philosopher Seneca once said, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary." And indeed, that we do not suffer because of the past, but because we keep it alive every night. Tonight, give yourself permission to close the chapters left unfinished, not through forgetting, but through acceptance. No one needs to apologize for you to be at peace. You simply need to stop expecting compensation. Say in your mind, rest doesn't come from fixing the past. It comes from no longer needing to, like closing a book, not because you hate it, but because you've finished reading it. In the darkness of night,
As your breath slows and your mind dissolves into stillness,
you can sense the thin line between sleep and death. Sleep is a temporary death, a gentle departure from body and awareness. And it is the soul's rehearsal in learning to let go. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." Death is not something to fear, but something to remember. Remember that every moment is unique. Remember that all anger, resentment, and comparison become trivial when placed beside the finiteness of life. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. But let not that thought make you despair. Let it purify you, helping you keep only what is truly worth living for. When we think of death, we begin to truly live. For the Stoics, night is not an emptiness. It is a ritual of reflection, not superstition, not prayer, but a ceremony of inner discipline. Before sleeping, they ask themselves, what part of this day will I carry into tomorrow?
not everything in a day is worth carrying.
Some things are meant to be left to the night, to dissolve into the darkness like stars fading after dawn. The Stoic sees the night as a sacred mirror. They stand before it not to judge but to see themselves clearly. They know that tomorrow does not begin with light, but with what they have cleansed tonight. And it is this repetition of ritual, reflection, selection, release that becomes the discipline of the soul. When one learns to do this every evening, even in dreams, they remain awake. Humans fear silence because they fear emptiness. But the Stoic understands silence is not emptiness. It is the space where meaning is born. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. And night is the only time when we stop knowing, so that we may learn again. When you allow your mind to be still, the meaning of life will rise naturally, almost like mist over the surface of water. No searching needed, no reasoning required."
Only listening. Meaning does not arise from grand action, but from full presence in every breath.
And when you realize this, everything, sleep, a smile, the whisper of the night wind, becomes part of meditation. The night is not merely a place to rest, but where we are reborn in consciousness. Each time you fall asleep, you rehearse the highest Stoic art, to die a little in order to live more deeply. Seneca once wrote, "Let mortality guide you."
Not haunt you. Let death guide you, not haunt you. For only when we face our finitude can we truly understand the value of each small moment. When you close your eyes tonight,
Imagine yourself dissolving into the universe, not disappearing, but merging. Every memory, every dream, every mistake fading like stardust until only your pure presence remains in this very moment. And when the first light of dawn touches your eyelids, you will not be the same person. You will be a version forged through the night, lighter, brighter, and more aware of why you live. How you end your days, how you build your life. Sleep is not escape, it's preparation. These are not words to remember, but to live by. Because night is where you train the mind, and dawn, it is merely the result. When the first light touches the world, your mind may seem to awaken, but in truth, a part of you never slept. The subconscious is the silent guardian of the soul.
It does not rest, does not tire, and knows nothing of time. When you sleep, it records.
When you dream, it rehearses. When you wake, it executes. And everything you experience in the day begins with the commands you unconsciously gave it at night. Last night, perhaps you slept 8 hours, yet your mind never stopped working. It sorted, classified, connected, and sometimes it created stories to help you make sense of your life. Those stories are what we call dreams. Some dream of flying,
Some dream of falling.
some dream of those who have passed away. None of it is random. It is the language of the subconscious, the way the mind speaks to itself. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Those who look outward dream. Those who look inward awaken, and it is in the night, when consciousness departs, that the subconscious finally has the chance to speak. If you've ever woken with a heavy feeling, as if you carried a whole world inside your dream, it's because your subconscious is still processing unfinished memories. It doesn't know yesterday or today. It only knows there's a wound not yet closed. The subconscious never forgets. It records everything: words, glances, sounds, even emotions you haven't dared to face, and while you sleep, it quietly reorganizes everything, searching for meaning within the chaos of life. You can imagine it as a skilled craftsman, sitting in a dim workshop, assembling the scattered fragments of your soul back into wholeness. The philosopher Aristotle once said, "The energy of the mind is the essence of life," and that energy does not cease when you sleep. On the contrary, it simply changes state. From acting to reflecting, from speaking to listening, from doing to being. Sleep, therefore, is not merely rest for the body, but the laboratory of the mind. There, the subconscious experiments with scenarios, replays behavioral patterns, and decides how you will react in the future. That is why you can change habits. If you change the way you speak to yourself before sleep. Think of this. If during the day you plant thoughts like, "I'm not good enough, I can never do it," then your subconscious will take them as truth and reinforce them every night. But if you whisper before sleep, "I am learning, I am healing, I am becoming," the subconscious will listen and begin to rewrite your inner program from the depths within, not in a single night, but through many, because, as Aristotle once reminded us, we are what we repeatedly do. We become what we repeat, even in dreams. The subconscious does not need reasons. It needs consistent repetition. When you keep sending the same message, it begins to understand, this is what my master wants to believe. And from that point, it changes how you feel, think, and react. Science calls this neural adaptation, the adjustment of neural networks. But Stoic philosophy had understood this thousands of years earlier, when Marcus Aurelius advised us to focus only on what is within our control. He was speaking of reprogramming the mind itself. When you sleep, the brain no longer knows what is real and what is imagined. It only knows how to strengthen the images that appear most often. If you worry before sleep, the brain builds stronger networks of anxiety. If you feel gratitude, it engraves the sense of abundance more deeply. That mechanism is both terrifying and miraculous. It can make you a slave or a master, depending on what you plant within it before night falls. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Before acting, tell yourself who you wish to become. And every night before you sleep is the perfect moment to say it. You don't need to shout, just whisper. You don't need unshakable faith, just clear intention. The subconscious hears everything, and it believes what you repeat the most. When you understand this, you begin to live differently. You no longer let the mind wander aimlessly through the night. You start to rewrite your dreams. You realize sleep does not erase thoughts, it nourishes them. Each night is an incubation period for the seeds you planted during the day. And when you wake, your mind will blossom according to what you have sown. Seneca once wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." And learning does not only happen in the light, it happens in the dark, when the mind relaxes and the soul grows quiet. When you fall asleep with awareness, you no longer fear the darkness, because you know it is in the darkness that you are being taught again how to be human. The subconscious never sleeps, and that is its greatest wonder. It is your most loyal friend, waiting only for clear instructions to serve you. If you command it through fear, it will protect you by shrinking, avoiding, worrying. If you command it through trust, it will lead you toward expansion, peace, and clarity. You cannot stop the subconscious from working, but you can choose the language you use when speaking to it. That is the language of inner mastery. And so, when you lie down tonight, do not think of sleep as emptiness. See it as a conversation between the soul and itself. A dialogue without words, but one that echoes through every breath, every dream, every moment of your becoming. The subconscious never sleeps. It waits for your next command. Be careful what you whisper before drifting into the night, because by morning, it may become reality. If the subconscious is the machine that never sleeps, then repetition is the language it understands best. That machine does not reason, it only records and executes. Like a blind craftsman, it merely feels the mold, and from it recreates countless versions of the same form. Each time you think, you carve another small groove into the memory of the mind. Repeat long enough and those grooves become pathways. And eventually, emotional habits. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And that is truer than ever in the darkness, when all masks fall away and only you remain, facing what you truly believe. Humans often want to change quickly. They crave a powerful thought, an instant resolution. But the subconscious doesn't work that way. It doesn't care about intensity, it cares about frequency, repetition, intensity. The philosopher Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. All excellence is built from repetition, not from a single dazzling act, but from a long series of quiet, steady ones each night. When you repeat a healthy thought, even if it's just a few short words, the brain records it as a priority signal. Over time, those positive signals begin to overpower the negative networks. You do not force yourself to change, you teach your brain how to feel again. The Stoics call this mental discipline, not forced control, but discipline through stillness. When the world grows loud, they choose silence. When the mind wants to react, they choose to observe. Epictetus once reminded, "No man is free who is not master of himself." True freedom comes when you can master yourself. And mastery begins the moment you stop your first reaction. Each night, when your mind starts replaying the day, observe it as though you were watching a distant film. Do not judge. Do not interrupt. Just watch. And remember, you are not the story. You are the one watching the story. When you realize that, a small space opens inside you. That space is the foundation of freedom. From it, you can choose thoughts, choose reactions, choose what deserves to be carried into sleep. The Stoics practice this every night until it becomes the instinct of peace. Just as the body is trained through repetition, the soul too must be exercised. You cannot expect peace if you do not train your mind night after night. Before sleep, choose one emotion you wish to cultivate, not pretending to feel it, but allowing it to be present. It could be gratitude. It could be the gentle relief of a day completed. It could be a quiet belief that tomorrow will be better. Do not try to feel something grand. Simply rest your attention on that vibration for a few minutes before you drift into sleep. The brain will register that emotion as a safe state, and next time you face stress, it will naturally return to that frequency. That is the power of emotional conditioning, teaching the mind to find peace as a reflex. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Nowhere can one find more peace than within their own soul. And each night, you have the chance to return there. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to meditate on a mountaintop. Just close your eyes and let positive thoughts repeat like the steady rhythm of waves within your heart. The subconscious does not argue. It does not resist. It only obeys. But how you command it, that is an art. If you command through fear, I don't want to be in pain anymore, it hears only the word pain. If you command through negation, I don't want to fail, it registers only fail. Change the language. Do not fight, redirect. Say instead, I am ready for peace. I am learning to rise. I am becoming calm. The subconscious will take these as official commands. Repeat them each night, and they will form the behavioral foundation of your mornings. The Stoics believed the mind is a tool, not a master. The more consciously you guide it, the more loyal it becomes. But if you neglect it, it becomes the ruler of your life, and you become a servant to your own thoughts. Remember, control does not mean suppression. Control means choosing what is allowed to continue, choosing which thoughts stay, which emotions deserve to remain in your heart.
Everything else, let the night carry away. Seneca once said,
To be calm is the highest achievement of the self. Calmness is the highest human accomplishment, and that calmness does not come from the outer world, but is forged through silent nights. Through every moment you choose observation over reaction. So before you sleep, do not ask, what will I face tomorrow? Ask instead, how will I program my mind tonight? That question alone is enough to transform your entire life, because it places you back in the seat of command, not in the current of chaos. Now, when you understand the power of repetition and control, you hold in your hands the key to peace. It is no longer philosophy, it is a practice of living. After you have learned how to direct your mind, after you know how to repeat positive thoughts to reprogram yourself, it is time to enter the deeper stage, emotional purification. Because you cannot build peace upon a clouded mind. You cannot plant the seeds of awareness in soil that has not been cleansed. The Stoics called this catharsis, meaning the purification of the soul. A silent ritual requiring no incense, only absolute honesty with oneself. Emotions do not disappear when you try to forget them. They simply sink like mud settling at the bottom of a lake. At first, the surface looks clear, but all it takes is one gust of wind and everything stirs up again. Murky, chaotic. That is why so many people feel restless, even in peace, without knowing why. It is not the present that makes them suffer, but the emotions left unwashed from the past. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events."
Realize this and you will find strength. Our strength lies in mastering our reactions, not in suppressing our emotions. The Stoics do not deny sadness.
They look directly at it, name it, and let it dissolve. They do not repress. They transform. Before purification, you must learn to observe without judgment. It is the first step and the hardest. When an emotion arises, anger, fear, hurt, jealousy, pause and watch it as a cloud passing by. You don't need to push it away. You don't need to call it bad. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists. What you resist will last longer." But when you allow yourself to observe, it dissolves on its own. Emotions do not need to be fixed. They only need to be seen. To see without judging, to understand without running. When you can do that, the mind begins to cleanse itself, like water clearing when no one stirs it anymore. Letting go is not forgetting. It is returning to the universe what no longer belongs to you. Many people believe that if they let go, they lose. But in truth, when you let go, you simply release the energy trapped in the past. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. It is not that we lack time to live, we simply waste too much of it on unnecessary emotions." Try this simple act each night. Before sleep, recall one emotion you wish to release.
No need to analyze it.
Just name it and say in your mind, "Thank you for teaching me. I release you now." When you express gratitude, you shift from resistance to liberation. The subconscious understands that this energy has fulfilled its purpose. And so with each night, you grow a little lighter. A full mind cannot receive anything new, just as an overflowing cup cannot take another drop. Emotional cleansing means returning to emptiness, so that peace has space to reside. Epictetus once reminded, "Only the educated are free." But educated here does not mean well-schooled. It means one who knows how to learn oneself anew. Each time you release an emotional burden, you are learning again, learning how to live without being led by old wounds. Night is the perfect time for this. When the world is silent, when there are no more roles to play, you can be honest with yourself without fear of being seen. Only you know what you are carrying. And only you can set it down. When you begin to cleanse your mind each night, you will notice your dreams changing. They become clearer, lighter, and sometimes luminous. For dreams too are reflections of the mind. A clear mind dreams clearly. A still mind sleeps deeply. Emotional cleansing does not make you numb. On the contrary, it allows you to feel more deeply, but without being swept away by feeling, like watching the waves without drowning in them. The Stoics understood that peace does not come from the absence of emotion, but from no longer being ruled by it. You can still feel sadness, but not despair. You can still feel anger, but not lose yourself. You can still love, but without dependence. That is true freedom, and such freedom cannot be achieved in noise. It is trained in the stillness of nights like this. When you lie down, do not try to fall asleep quickly. Let your mind drift slowly, like a river cleansed after rain. Do not think, just feel. Your breath soft, your heartbeat steady, and every burden dissolving like mist. Tonight, let stillness do its work. You don't go to bed with dirty clothes. Don't go with a dirty mind. An ancient Stoic teaching, it sounds simple, yet carries profound wisdom. Before letting the body rest, let the mind be cleansed. When the mind is purified, and emotions have settled like a lake after rain, that is when you can see yourself clearly in the mirror of stillness. No more noise of emotion, no more turbulence of thought, only a clear current remains, and your reflection staring back at you. This is the stage of reflection where you no longer ask why, but begin to ask what for. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The unexamined life is not worth living. A life unexamined is a life not truly lived." Each night, before sleep, the Stoic reflects upon the day as an artist reviewing their own work, not to judge, but to understand. They do not ask, "Where did I go wrong today?" They ask instead, "What did life teach me today?" For them, every mistake is a lesson in the soul's curriculum. No one grows through avoidance. We only grow through the courage to look. Reflection is not brooding. It is illumination. When you look back on your day with calm awareness, you send a message to the subconscious, "I am ready to learn." And the subconscious begins to correct itself in silence. Night is a small death. Dawn is a rebirth. Between these two moments, we have the chance to become a new version of ourselves. Epictetus once said, "Every habit and capability is confirmed and grows in its corresponding actions." Habits and abilities are strengthened through their own repetition, and to sleep in awareness is to strengthen inner peace. When you fall asleep in serenity, you don't have to try to be peaceful in the morning. Peace has already been programmed into every cell while you were immersed in the night. You awaken, still yourself, but lighter, clearer, and closer to your truest self. The Stoics believed that every day is a small lifetime, and every sleep a temporary death that renews the soul. Thus, they do not fear the night. They welcome it as a gentle friend come to teach them how to let go and to return the gift of dawn's light. Seneca once wrote, "Each day should be regarded as a lifetime." If each day is a life, then every night is an opportunity to let the old die and the new be born. There are two kinds of dawn: the dawn of the sun and the dawn of consciousness. The outer dawn illuminates the world. The inner dawn illuminates you. When the mind has been cleansed, you will notice a soft light growing from within. Not blinding, not radiant, but warm and calm. That light is the sign of inner rebirth. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." We do not become enlightened by imagining light, but by bringing awareness to the darkness, and the night is that darkness. You have walked through it.
You have seen, released, and understood.
Thus, the light within you now is real. When you open your eyes to a new day, you carry within you a different version of yourself. Not because the world has changed, but because you have changed the way you see it. And when perception changes, reality follows. That is silent rebirth, something no dream can compare to. Reflection does not end in the night. It continues through the following day, in every small action. For the Stoic does not meditate just to meditate. They meditate to live. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Don't waste time debating what goodness is. Live it. Tomorrow morning, when you awaken, live as someone who has learned from the night before. You don't need perfection, only awareness, because every small awareness, when lived sincerely, becomes a rebirth of the soul. Night is the classroom, day is the test, and you, each morning, are the result of the lessons learned in last night's sleep. So, do not fear the dark, for darkness is simply where you are reshaped, so that dawn may not only rise on the horizon, but within you. When the world is still, that's where strength is built. Strength is not born in motion, but forged in stillness. You have passed through the long night of reflection. You have learned to let go, to purify, and to listen to the quiet voice of the soul. Now, We enter the deeper realm, where philosophy becomes ritual, and sleep is no longer a biological act, but a sacred act of renewal. When you lie down to rest, imagine that it is not merely a bed, but an altar of the inner self. On that altar, you lay down everything from the day, successes, failures, worries, regrets, and even the things you have yet to understand. The night does not ask you to be perfect. It only asks you to be honest. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "At every moment, keep a sturdy mind free of distractions." To keep a steady, undisturbed mind, that is the essence of the Stoic night ritual. As you breathe, each breath becomes an act of offering. You offer back to the night everything you no longer need to carry. You do not try to cleanse. You simply allow the night to cleanse for you. And in that surrender, there is a kind of invisible strength. It is not the strength of control, but the strength of trust. You believe that when you stop resisting, the universe will realign you with its natural order. Carl Jung once said, "In all chaos there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. Within chaos there is always a hidden order. And within stillness, that order begins to reveal itself." The Stoics understood this long ago. They did not run from chaos. They listened to it until it disclosed its meaning. When you allow the mind to rest, it does not cease to exist. It begins to reorganize itself. Stillness is not emptiness. It is the state of being healed. Think of it as a muddy river. When you stir it, the water remains cloudy. But when you let it be, the mud settles by itself and the surface becomes clear. That is the miracle of stillness. In sleep, the same thing happens.
You don't need to try to be peaceful.
You simply allow peace to emerge by stopping every effort to control. The Stoics did not try to extinguish emotion. They simply stepped out of the role of the character and observed the whole scene. Epictetus once taught, "Men are disturbed not by things,
but by the view which they take of them. We are not troubled by events,
but by the way we see them." When you learn to observe the mind, you begin to see the difference between yourself and your thoughts. That moment is the first taste of freedom. Before sleep, try taking one mental step back. Watch your thoughts drift by like clouds across the sky. No grasping, no chasing. Just watching. In doing so, you become the observer, and the mind begins to cleanse itself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And in the night, that power becomes clearer than ever. You cannot control the world, but you can choose how you pass through your sleep. When you let everything settle, a strange moment arrives. There is no longer "I am thinking," only presence. In that presence, fear finds no ground to stand on. Emotions dissolve like mist, and the mind begins to glow from within. This is the quiet alchemy, where the soul is forged like metal in fire, but the fire is not suffering. It is the light of awareness. Seneca once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Hardship strengthens the mind, just as labor strengthens the body. And the night is where the mind is silently tempered. When you pass through a night with conscious awareness, you have grown stronger without having to fight. You have changed, though no one can see that change but you. That is true transformation. When serenity becomes the natural instinct of the soul. Transformation doesn't happen in daylight. It happens when the mind learns to rest in darkness. Transformation does not occur under light, but in the darkness, where the mind learns to rest and to listen, and then when you emerge from the night, everything around you may appear the same. The sky, the wind, the sounds, the rhythm of life. But you know, something within you has shifted. A quiet stillness has bloomed. A thin veil of understanding now covers the heart. That is deep transformation. not born from learning, but from living the philosophy and breathing with it through the night. Stillness. It may sound soft, but to the Stoic, it is the highest form of strength. The strength of action may conquer the world, but the strength of stillness conquers the self, and the one who masters himself is the one whom nothing can conquer. No one is born still.
Stillness must be trained, just as a warrior trains his body in the silence of night.
The Stoic trains his soul in the silence of thought. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. The closer one comes to calmness, the closer one is to strength." But stillness does not mean stagnation. It is movement within peace, a steady rhythm amid chaos. When the world demands reaction by day, train the opposite by night. Practice not reacting. Let every thought come and go like the wind. Learn to stand in the storm without bending. Stillness is the center of all movement. When your mind is still, everything outside revolves around that axis without shaking you. If every emotion is a wave, then stillness is the power of the ocean behind it. You cannot think your way into stillness. You must train it each time your mind wants to rush. Pause. Each time emotion rises, or watch. Each time you get caught in thought, return to the breath. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Mastery of self is not about forcing. It is about observing until you understand the mechanism. Each night, spend a few minutes listening to the space between two breaths. That is the training ground of the soul. There, stillness becomes familiar, and your mind learns to return to its center whenever it is pulled away. Modern humans fear silence, because in silence, they begin to hear themselves. And that is more frightening than any sound. We live among voices, notifications, and the constant noise of our own thinking. But the Stoics knew silence does not kill you. Noise does. Seneca once wrote, "If you want to be loved, love yourself first." And loving yourself is not indulgence, it is giving your mind space to rest. When you learn to live with stillness, you begin to realize all outer noise is only a reflection of the inner noise. When the inside grows quiet, the world outside becomes light. Imagine your mind as a lake. When disturbed, the surface distorts every reflection. But when the water is clear, you can see the sky and even yourself. The Stoic trains the mind like a lake keeper tends the water, not by forcing it to be still, but by allowing it to settle. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Nowhere can you find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in your own soul." When you understand this, you no longer need to flee anywhere. You can sit in the middle of a crowded street and your mind remains as still as a forest lake. You can sleep amid the storms of life, and your dreams will still shine. Stillness is not a reward. Stillness is the path. You walk through it each night, and in the morning, you carry it with you. In the way you speak, in the way you see, and in the way you listen to the world. The training of stillness is not about silence, but about hearing everything without being moved. When you understand this, you will see every Stoic teaching, every lesson, every practice points to one thing: inner steadiness. And that steadiness is stillness. When you have trained stillness, you begin to realize that the mind is not a battlefield. It is a temple without walls, without roof, built entirely of awareness. Each thought is a brick, each breath a stick of incense, and every night when you close your eyes, you step into that temple. The Stoics believed that the only thing you truly own is your mind. The outer world is temporary, but the mind is your eternal home. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, Men seek retreats for themselves, in the country, by the sea, or in the hills, but nowhere can a man find a retreat more peaceful or untroubled than in his own soul. We often search for peace elsewhere, a distant beach, a quiet room, a corner cafe. But true peace does not come from scenery. It comes from the quality of presence. When you understand this, every place becomes a sanctuary. Every sleep becomes a sacred ritual, because you no longer seek stillness outside and you create it from within. No temple remains sacred unless it is tended daily. So too the mind, if not cared for, it becomes covered with the dust of old thoughts. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Reaction is the wind that blows across the altar of the soul. If you react with anger, dust will cover the altar. If you respond with awareness, the light will remain. Each night, treat the cleansing of the mind as a small ritual. No elaborate ceremony is needed. All that matters is that you look within and ask, "What shall I leave outside tonight?" That question is the key, because your temple only shines when it is emptied. And in that emptiness, light finds its own way in. At the center of the temple of the mind burns a flame that never goes out, the flame of awareness. It is the part of you that never sleeps. Though the body rests, consciousness keeps watch. Though darkness covers the world, that flame still glows quietly. Seneca once said, "A great mind becomes a sanctuary for the divine." A great mind is a dwelling for the sacred, and that sacredness is not a god. It is the power of awareness within you. Imagine this. When you close your eyes, the flame flickers gently at the center of your forehead. It does not burn fiercely, but softly, steadily. It does not consume. It illuminates. Every thought, every memory passing through it is purified. No longer waste, but fuel for wisdom. Stillness is no longer something you seek. It becomes the home you live in each day. Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." Clarity comes only when you can look into your heart. When the mind is the temple, every moment of life becomes meditation. A conversation becomes a prayer. A breath becomes a hymn. A night's sleep becomes a sacred return. You need not climb mountains to find stillness. Your temple is always here, in your heart, in your breath, and in every thought you choose to keep. The Stoics did not see life as a sequence of events, but as a series of sacred rituals refining the soul. Each morning, a ceremony of rebirth. Each night, a ceremony of return. Each sleep, a silent prayer for wisdom. When you live with your mind as a temple, everything that comes and goes becomes a guest. You welcome, then you let go, without clinging, without resistance. Within that temple, everything has its place: joy, sorrow, hurt, gratitude. They are not enemies, but offerings brought to teach you about yourself. You don't need to build a temple to find peace. You need to realize you already live in one. Peace is not somewhere far away. Peace is how you treat your own mind, and when you realize this, every night becomes a Stoic meditation ritual, where you no longer seek meaning, you become meaning itself. When the temple within is lit, when stillness is no longer something you practice, but something you are, the night enters its final stage. Union. No more separation between light and shadow, between meditation and sleep, between I am practicing and I am simply being. All become one. In the deepest part of the night, all boundaries begin to dissolve. Consciousness no longer fights the subconscious. Emotion is no longer the enemy of reason. All become parts of one single flow. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." And in this moment of union, you begin to understand that truth, not through intellect, but through experience. Because in the night, when all layers of judgment fall asleep, you see reality not through concepts, but through pure presence. Everything is as simple as breath. No need to define, no need to prove. You no longer think about life, you are life. The Stoics understood that wisdom does not lie in choosing one right side, but in holding both sides at once. Carl Jung once wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries." Wholeness is not achieved by denying a part of oneself, but by integrating the opposites. And the night is where that dance unfolds. Light and shadow meet. Fear and trust embrace. Wounds and healing are no longer separate. In the silence, you realize everything you once resisted has been seeking to return, to be integrated. Anger carries within it the seed of love. Fear hides within it the reminder of faith. Pain is simply the other face of the longing to connect. When you accept it all, you no longer need to heal, because you are no longer divided. Each breath is no longer a means, but life itself. Every inhale is the world entering you. Every exhale is you returning to the world. There is no someone trying anymore, only life breathing itself. Epictetus once said, "There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond our power." And in this moment, you understand more deeply than ever. You never controlled the world. You were only learning how to move in rhythm with it. This is conscious surrender, not weakness, but trust that the universe knows what it's doing. You no longer need to become someone. You only need to be. Then every memory, every emotion, every experience merges into a single breath. No longer inside or outside, only one boundless space. Seneca once said, "To be calm is the highest achievement of the self." And in the deepest part of the night, you realize peace is not a reward, but the original nature of the soul. It was never lost, only hidden beneath the noise of the world. Now, as everything fades, it reappears. Simple, pure,
Infinite. This is awakening in darkness.
no blinding light, no music, no triumph.
Only absolute stillness. Yet within that stillness,
You feel a light spreading high from the heart, through the mind, and out into the universe, because you now understand you were never separate from the whole. You are part of the universal rhythm, and that rhythm is life itself. No more I am meditating. No more I am sleeping. No more I am seeking. Only the total presence of now. You have come full circle, from chaos to stillness, from stillness to awareness, and from awareness to unity. Now, why you no longer need to practice, because life itself is the eternal practice. You don't train your mind in daylight, you train it in darkness. At the night's final reminder, when darkness becomes your friend, fear disappears, because you know that within the darkness, true light is being born. And when the first light of dawn streams through the window, you do not simply wake up. You are reborn, no longer carrying the past, only the stillness, like a lake after a storm. When the first light touches the sky, you do not just wake, you are born again. Sleep has fulfilled its purpose, to heal, to rebuild, to return you to the core of awareness. And now, as the new day opens, you carry within you a mind that has been trained. Everything this morning seems the same as yesterday. The birdsong, the gentle wind, the light filtering through the curtains. But something has changed. you see differently. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive and to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." And that is not advice, and it is a ritual of the awakened. Because this morning, you do not open your eyes to chase the world, you open them to truly see the world. Light is no longer a physical phenomenon, it is a metaphor for by consciousness. Each ray entering your room is like new data streaming into a cleansed mind. You do not need to force positivity, you only need to be present. True positivity arises naturally from presence itself. When the mind has been trained in darkness, it no longer rushes to judge when it meets the light. It observes without reaction. Epictetus once said, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. It is not events that trouble us, but how we perceive them." Morning is the first test.
An unanswered message.
An unfinished task. A person who irritates you, but the one with a trained mind is no longer swept away. They know how to pause, breathe, and choose their response. Not because they are indifferent, but because they have learned to observe before acting. That is true freedom. Freedom is not the ability to do anything, but the ability to choose not to react. The Stoics never saw day and night as separate entities. They are two halves of the same cycle. Night is where the mind is programmed. Morning is where it runs. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do," and that is true not only of what you think before sleep, but also of what you choose upon waking. If night is the lesson of letting go, morning is the lesson of acting with calm. If night is the return to center, morning is bringing that center into the world. Morning is no longer a new beginning. It is the natural continuation of a mind that has been cleansed. No more rushing, no more striving to prove. You simply do because the mind is already ready. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." But strict here does not mean forcing. It means being mindfully aware of yourself in every small choice. A trained mind does not need to appear strong.
It is silent, but inside there is order.
It is gentle, but the will is forged like steel. When the world grows noisy, they do not run away, for stillness already lives within them. They are not pulled by the energy of others, they radiate their own. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short life, but that we waste much of it." And the awakened understand. Time is not measured in hours, but in how present you are within each moment. When you live fully with each breath, time expands.
Every moment becomes eternity.
This morning, try not to do anything in haste.
Do not reach for your phone.
Do not turn on the world's noise. Let the silence of dawn speak to you. That is the reward of those who have learned to live with darkness. They no longer need light to see clearly, because the true light is already within them. Sleep doesn't erase your thoughts, it incubates them. Everything you planted in the night is blooming in your mind this morning, and that is what makes this morning different from all others. You have brought your own light into the world. Morning is not a beginning. It is a continuation of the night. What you sowed in darkness, faith, stillness, gratitude, now sprouts in the first light of day. This is the moment to live philosophy, not merely to think about it. When a Stoic wakes, they do not ask, "What must I do today?" They ask, "Who do I wish to become today?" Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "When you arise in the morning, remember that you will meet ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious and unsocial men. But I will not be hurt by them, for we are made for cooperation. Each morning, he reminded himself that the world would not be easy. But instead of fearing it, he prepared his mind. He did not prepare plans. He prepared spirit. That is the first secret of the Stoic morning. Train your mind before touching the world. Do not let the world teach you how to feel. Let the mind trained in the night guide how you respond. Meditation is not only sitting still, it is full presence in action. When a Stoic washes their face, they feel the water on their skin. When they walk, they listen to the sound of their own steps. When they eat, they do not rush. They taste life. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Tell yourself who you wish to become, and then act as though you already are. If you wish to be calm, eat as the calm do. If you wish to be wise, breathe as the wise breathe. If you wish to love, speak as one who has been healed. No special ritual is needed. Every small act, when done with awareness, becomes sacred. Morning is when the world begins to pull you from your center. News, people, work, memories, pressure. Everything wants to occupy your mind. The Stoic does not flee. They prepare. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Each morning, they put on the armor of awareness, not to fight the world, but to remain unshaken by it. That armor is forged from self-control, awareness, gratitude. Before stepping out the door,
Whisper to yourself, "Today, I will not be disturbed by things I cannot control. I choose peace."
even when chaos surrounds me, these quiet affirmations are spiritual talismans. They keep you steady in the storm of the day. Gratitude is not a spontaneous feeling, it is a practice. The Stoic does not wait for perfection to be grateful. They begin with the smallest things: a breath, the light, a pair of hands, a new opportunity. Seneca once said, "He who receives a benefit with gratitude repays the first installment on his debt." When you feel gratitude, you are already repaying the first debt of existence, the debt of being alive. Look around this morning. Nothing extraordinary is required. Simply see that you are here, and that alone is a miracle. When you begin your day with gratitude, everything else falls naturally into its rightful order. Gratitude does not change the outer world, it changes the eyes through which you see it. Now you are ready to step into the day. You no longer need to keep your composure, for composure has become your nature. You no longer need to try to stay calm, for calm is now your default state. You no longer have to remind yourself to be mindful, for mindfulness has become the way you live. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." And the trained mind does not pursue ambition, it pursues state. The state of clarity, harmony, and mastery of self. When you act from that state, everything you do, no matter how small, carries the energy of peace. How you end your day is how you build your life. How you begin it determines the world you'll create. Morning is the stage of choice, and the Stoic, through the stillness of the trained mind, chooses not to react, but to create. The morning outside is rising, but the true light is the one rising within you. It does not shine with brilliance, it glows with warmth. It does not blaze, it endures.
And most importantly, never fades. Seneca once wrote, "As is a tale,
so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters. Life is not measured by its length, but by the quality of the light within it. In the same way, each human being carries a sun inside. Many live their entire lives under the light of others, chasing recognition, forgetting that true light does not come from outside. The inner light is never loud. It arrives when you stop, when you stay silent long enough to hear yourself, when you cease seeking long enough to realize you never lost anything at all. You do not need to look for the light of positivity. You only need to remove the clouds of fear. The sun has always been there, waiting to be seen. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Happiness does not live in grand things. It lives in how you see life. When your mind has been cleansed, everything becomes transparent. You no longer need to understand. You simply must.
And you look at a drop of dew and see the entire universe within it.
You hear the wind and feel the breath of existence passing through you. There is no longer a border between
you and the world. No separation between inside and outside. All things are one. That
is the clarity of being, not because you learned something new, but because you let go of everything untrue. When your inner light awakens, you not only see yourself clearly, you begin to see others clearly too. Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." When you have faced your own darkness, you no longer fear the darkness in others. That is when compassion arises. Not pity, but understanding. You see others suffer and do not judge. You see their anger and do not react. You recognize they are simply living through a chapter you too once walked through. The light within you does not separate you from the world. It allows you to touch it with peace. You do not need to say much. Your presence itself becomes light. Epictetus once taught, "No great thing is created suddenly. Nothing truly great is born in haste." So it is with stillness. It does not emerge in noise, but grows through the rhythm of quiet breaths. Those who carry inner light do not shine. They radiate. Not imposing, not arguing, simply being there. And their presence alone is enough to change the atmosphere around them. That is the radiance of calm. Power does not need words. Light does not need to declare itself, for it knows this truth. Everything of real value shines best when left undisturbed. Outside, the sun is rising. Inside, your mind glows. The two lights merge. The world and the soul become one single being. Seneca once said, "Let mortality guide you,
not haunt you. Let death guide you, not haunt you." And now you understand, every morning is a reminder that you are still alive.
that you still have the chance to love, still have time to understand,
and still have a mind to train. That is the gift of dawn. Not merely light to see the path,
but an invitation to live truer, deeper, gentler. When the inner light merges with the outer one, you no longer need to seek, because you have become the light itself. No need for prayers.
No need for proof.
Only to live. Each breath, each glance, each act is a continuation of meditation.
Eckhart Tolle said, "You are not in the universe. You are the universe expressing itself as a human for a little while." True light does not come from the sun.
It comes from a mind that has stopped being afraid. That mind, now, is the dawn. The light within you is no longer separate. It flows with the light outside, like two rivers finally meeting the sea. This is the moment of union, where sleep, meditation, philosophy, and life become a single movement of consciousness. No more day and night, no more awake and asleep, no more practice and living. All is simply continuation. The seamless flow Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Observe constantly that all things take place by change, and that nature loves nothing so much as to change the things which are and to make new things like them." Everything unfolds through transformation.
And nature loves that, for it is how life renews itself. This morning, you do not leave the darkness.
You carry the darkness you have understood into the light. Darkness is no longer the opposite of light. It is a part of the symphony of existence. Union does not happen in the reasoning mind, but through the full experience of being, to breathe, to see, to feel, to know that you are here. Epictetus once taught, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Do not speak of philosophy, live it." Now you no longer need to remind yourself to stay calm. Stillness has entered your blood. You no longer need to speak of philosophy. Philosophy now breathes through you. The Stoic understands that true wisdom is not in words, but in the way you exist, in how you listen without judgment, in how you face your mistakes without condemnation, in how you walk through an ordinary day and still feel the sacred in every movement. This is wisdom embodied.
No need for proof.
No need for titles, only to live, with the simplicity of one who understands themselves. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. The greatest privilege of life is to become your true self. And when the light within you merges with the light outside, you realize you never truly lost yourself. You merely forgot that you were always whole. Every fear, every wound, every urge to prove were only veils covering the simple truth. You have always been complete. There is nothing to fix, nothing to seek,
Nothing to achieve. Only to remember when you remember.
All the fragments within you begin to align, mind and body, reason and emotion, action and awareness become one continuous flow of being." Seneca once said, "Begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life. Live now and see each day as an entire life of its own." This morning, you live a new life, not because the world has changed, but because your mind sees it differently. Everything you trained in the dark now becomes light that shines outward. Patience in speech, slowness in action, stillness in thought, clarity in vision. This is the light of integration. Not dazzling, not loud, but gentle, steady, and constant like the heartbeat of the cosmos. There is no end, there is no conclusion, only cycles. Day turns to night.
Night returns to day. And with every cycle, if lived consciously,
You move closer to your luminous essence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And now you understand the quality of your thoughts is shaped not only by the day, but by what you sow in the night. Each night is a lesson. Each morning is an examination. And every moment in both is an opportunity to train the mind. When you live this way, everything becomes meditation. Every sleep becomes philosophy. Every dawn becomes a new enlightenment, no destination.
no salvation.
For you are already within the light. How you end your day is how you build your life. Sleep is not escape, it's preparation. And when the world begins to grow noisy, remember, within you, there remains a quiet place, a space where philosophy, sleep,
And life merge into one. That is the lucid mind. That is the trained soul. That is you, fully awakened. Epilogue. When the light fades, you return to night.
When night arrives, you learn stillness again. And through this sacred cycle, your mind is refined, until it is no longer merely a tool, but becomes the very light that leads the way. Now, let everything settle. You have walked through the long night, through thoughts, memories, reflections, through the deepest layers of yourself. You have learned how to let go, then how to observe, then how to stay still amid all that comes and goes. Now, you are no longer the one seeking peace. You are peace. Sleep is no longer a place to escape. It is where you train, in silence, where the mind reorganizes, the soul restores, and you meet yourself again, without roles, without noise, without masks. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look." True strength does not come from outside. It arises each time you turn inward. When you understand this, every night becomes a ritual. You no longer sleep to forget. You sleep to understand. You no longer sleep to escape. You sleep to prepare. Sleep does not erase what you think. It incubates it in the subconscious, and in the morning, you wake with those same seeds. So choose carefully what you bring with you into the night. You need no grand prayer, only a simple whisper. Tonight I rest with peace. Tomorrow I rise with clarity in the silence of night. You've learned what every Stoic philosopher tried to remind, that the world does not belong to you, but your mind does. And if you learn to master that universe, nothing outside it can disturb your peace. Epictetus once taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That is the final lesson of night, and the first lesson of dawn. So sleep, not to forget, but to return. Return to your breath. Return to your stillness. Return to the brightest part of you, for in darkness light is born. And in sleep your strength is trained. Sleep is not escape, it's preparation. The night trains the mind so the morning can reveal its strength. When you wake, you do not simply open your eyes. You open a new chapter of yourself, quieter, clearer, freer. This is Lucid Dream. Sleep and Science Stories. Thank you for journeying through the night, where philosophy, sleep, and life meet as one. Now, let everything go.
Take a deep breath.
And let sleep come, like a gentle teacher. Because peace is not found, it's trained.
And tonight you've trained it well.